All right, I wanted to take a moment to review the image swapping code just to give you some kind of an idea of where I wanted to go with it and what I'm looking forward to in this week's assignment with the Chicha's Pizzeria. Um, First of all, well, let me just show you the page. I'm sure you've seen it before. This should look familiar. So this is my photo gallery. And the idea was if I click on it, then the image was going to pop up. And I asked you to fill it from an array. And so what I want you to see is, first of all, I'd like to be able to see it. There it is. Okay. So first of all, I have loaded those images from an array. So I have two arrays. I have a parallel array, one of which is the one that's holding the image and one that's holding the photos. And so what I want you to get your head around is this new idea that we can actually write our HTML tags, mix it in with our variables, and throw that all into a JavaScript string. So let's kind of review what an image tag would look like. So an image tag has an IMG. It has a source equals a quote, maybe a string name, photo one dot or a file name, and then maybe an alt, or I guess I used an ID above. Let's see, what did I do? I used source, I used an ID. I guess I didn't really use anything. I was going to use this for the ID. So where did I go? Okay, so ID equals, and then maybe give it an ID of photo one. Okay, so that's pretty simple HTML. We're familiar with that. But how do you throw that into a string in JavaScript? Well, just like you would a string with any kind of concatenating a string, you want to make sure, here's the part that gets really convoluted. So here's my image source equals, and we're putting that in a string that I am concatenating, okay? So let me just walk through that slowly. So overall, I've got a string, because you can see the two quotes, and I'm concatenating it with the source, with the image that's in my photo one with image that's in my image array. Okay, so I want to put that in as the source, and then I'm concatenating another string, and I can see that string because it opens and closes with double quotes. So that part's not hard to get your head around, but where people get confused or where the syntax or the errors come in is the fact that when I look at my image class, I have to make sure that I include all of the quotes that are needed in this HTML tag. I have to make sure that the source is the source image is the source of the image is enclosed in quotes as well as the ID. And so if you look at this portion of the string, just before I put in the file name, I have image source equals, but I have to make sure I include a quotation to cover this quotation that goes in the beginning of that file name. I've used a single quote because if I put a double quote here, then JavaScript will get confused because it says, well, there's an opening quote, here's a closing quote, and then here's another closing quote. I don't know what to do with it. So we have to make sure that the inner quotes are single quotes. So I utilize the single quote to fill in this quote for the beginning of the file name. Then I concatenate the actual file name. So that's this portion, photo.1.png, which I got from my array. Okay. And then concatenate, there's my big string. And then everything that I need to finish off that image. In other words, I have my quotes. I need the single quotes to take care of whatever single quotes might be needed. Okay. I could actually be filling that from the array that I set up for myself. I'm not doing that in this example, but you certainly could. But the very confusing part, like I said, is that you got to make sure you get all those quotes in there. And something I would recommend you do, notice I didn't put in the HTML, all of this string inside of my right. And the reason I didn't is because I like to every now and then throw in an alert box. So now string 2. And what I can do with this alert box now is I can make sure that I've created this string properly. In other words, I'm going to save that and go back into my document. Now when I reload this document, it's going to give me what I think I'm supposed to be writing to the page. So does this look right? If I were to write this onto my HTML page, am I doing it correctly? And it says, I know it's kind of small, I can't really make that part bigger, but it's image source equals, there's my quote, photo1.jpg, another quote. I've got an odd little space in between JPEG and my closing quote. It'll work, but maybe I'll be, anal enough to go back and fix that. I probably will. And then the ID equals, et cetera, et cetera. So my point is that this is a nice way to make sure that you've included all of the quotes that you need to make your HTML string syntactically correct. So obviously I'm not going to leave that in production. There's my little extra uh, example string that I put in. Where is my code? There it is. Okay. So obviously I'm going to remove that when the point comes. You can also do a console log, and if you're reading this week's chapter, you can see that that's another way to, instead of getting alert box, that'll actually write it to the debugger console log. But anyway, either way, you can, it helps, it's just another way to help troubleshoot to make sure you're writing that string properly. But now the point is that by doing it this way, so I put everything in a string. I should be, oh, here we go. I should be looping through that string. Oh, here we go. Oh, that was just the big one. Okay, so here again, I have that image source. I have that image written in an HTML file, but I have it written in a loop. And the reason for that is now I don't have to keep writing out every time I need an image. I'll have to put in a new tag. So by looping through the array, I check out the length of the array. Okay. I then create the image tag, and however image tags will be necessary, therefore, to accommodate the amount of images that are in that array, and then I write that HTML string to the document. And the reason for that is, in this case, if I came in and wanted to add a photo4.jpg, which I happen to have in this file, or in this directory, when I reload my page now, it'll just flow in. I have that fourth one that has been added in, and I don't have to write any more image tags or anything like that. So it makes it much easier to maintain if someone needed to. Granted, we might have to redesign things if it's not going to fit on our page. But when we start doing things like in Bob's Pizzeria, where we're just filling in a select box, you can see where that would really come in handy, that I just have to change the array, and it's automatically going to filter down and be incorporated into my drop-down box. So I'll put a sample of this code up so you have that as well. But this is what I was kind of going for with the image, or with the image photo gallery, was I wanted you to start thinking about loading this from the array and start thinking about how I can get rid of repetitive code. I can utilize JavaScript to make my code more maintainable. And then the hard part to get your head around is how can I start writing HTML, mixing it with my JavaScript so that when it gets rendered, it actually writes a complete, syntactically correct HTML element to my page. So hopefully that gives you some insight into what I was looking at and what I'm hoping for the Bob's Pizzeria, not Bob's, I guess it was Cheech's Pizzeria project.